So we have a segment called the Deep Dive,
Okay.
and we briefly talked about you interact having the opportunity to work with Michael Jackson with Butterflies.
Right.
Take me on that journey, having that experience with Mike.
Okay. All right. So, well, maybe because it just didn't like fall out of the sky.
Okay,
So,
how did
you
it
know what I
happen?
mean?
Yeah, how did that happen?
You know. Okay. So it's a guy, John McClane, who was Michael Jackson's manager at the time, and he also had a label on DreamWorks, and he signed Floetry with Jazzy Jeff, and he also had I think Swiss Beats signed at the time, right?
Okay.
And so Michael Jackson was finishing up his album, and John McClane was like, "Hey, I'm finishing up Mike's album. Send me some stuff." And I'm like thinking to myself, "Yeah, right. You'd never take a Michael Jackson record. Like, stop." You know what I mean? And I'm hearing like Michael Jackson got Rodney Jerkins in the studio for months, and this and that, all this huge stuff at the time for me. So covered my ass, and me and Marsha from Flourish, we got together and we worked on the song Butterflies, right?
Sure.
So we did the demo version, and she killed it, of course. And I remember calling Mike's manager, John McClane. Yeah, I'm playing for you over the phone because the technology to send songs didn't even exist. It didn't even exist. You couldn't send a song through email or any of that. You know what I mean? We actually had accounts with FedEx because you had to send CDs or DAT tapes. Know what I mean? Old school shit. So long story short, he heard the song over the phone. Was like, "Oh man, Mike definitely got to cut this, right?" And I'm like, I didn't even flinch. I'm like, I don't even believe it. Yeah. This was where my mind was at that time. I didn't believe anything because I've been so let down by everything at the time. You know what I mean? So 2-3 months later. Funny thing is, I remember being in the studio with Faith, and I played it for her. I was like, "Yo, you should cut the song," because I didn't think they were going to continue with it. So I was trying to sell the song. So I remember playing it for her. She's like, I like that, but it's not really my style. I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." You know what I mean?
Oh, she lost one.
Yeah, but not really. You know what I mean? Because get that song on Mike is everything. So long story short, I got the call from John, like, "Yeah, we're going to record Butterflies in New York at the Hit Factory." Okay, so I got a little excited, but I was like, I don't believe it. So I see Michael Jackson with my own eyes. I'm not going to even tell my mom that I'm working with him. I remember, we had the two-way pages back then. I remember, So long story short, I got to New York. Marsha was with me too, but the first days it was just me and Bruce Fadeen, who is a legendary engineer.
Yeah,
he mixed records and artists all the way from Sarah Vaughan, Dizzy Gillespie, all the Jacksons, all the way up to I remember him mixing Jennifer Lopez, like this, Bruce Fadeen, legend,
legendary engineer, nice,
right? So I remember meeting him and geeking out over him, and he's like, "Hey, call me Uncle Bruce," and all these things. I'm like, "What?" So I get in the studio and I'm like, Mike's not there, but I saw somebody sitting in the booth. Come to find out that was Mike, but he had his, back towards me. And he was warming up with vocal coach Seth. I can't think of his name, but he's like legendary too. Vocal coach to Aretha Franklin and all these other huge artists back in the day.
Nice.
So, long story short, Mike comes out the booth, and I'm like, "Oh,
he's here."
He's here. So he's like, "Hey," he comes over to me, "Give me your hand. Let me show you how he shook my hand." So he comes over to me. He was like, "And you are?" I'm like, "I'm Andre." And Bruce was like, "Well, yeah, this is Dre. He produced Butterflies." And Mike was like, "I love that song." And then he left.
Wow.
See you guys. So I was like, "Oh, well, I guess we're not recording today." You know what I mean?
Did he cut it that day or did
No.
Just came in, made everybody.
So that day, back then, I had digital 88 tapes.
Did he really have did he have that soft voice?
Because I heard it wasn't as soft as
I heard someone say Mike Jackson.
It was definitely mid-range.
Yeah.
I love that
What's
song.
What's up, man? It was smooth.
It was like, I love that song. I was
like,
Mike, and his handshake was firm. I was like, Mike, because Mike a real G.
Mike a G out here.
Yeah,
That's the thing that a lot of people, I guess, we think he was so meek and mild, which he was, but he seemed like he was just like a real one out here.
Yeah, I don't mean, Mike was in shape. He's a dancer too, so he wasn't like fragile or weak, kind of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But So the first day we dumped these tapes and the track and all these different things, and this was like the early stages of Pro Tools.
Right.
So he had Pro Tools. It was worth like almost $200,000 to have Pro Tools, something like that back then. So he had all this elaborate gear, and I'm like, just a fan, at the time, but also very ready to work. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
More than anything.
Gotcha.
So, because I would never get excited until Mike would leave every day, to be honest with you. Right?
Gotcha.
So, the next day he came back and, we were talking and Marsha's there and, so it didn't really kick in till, he got in the booth and he sang a little bit and I was like, it kind of hit me. I was like, oh, Michael Jackson. It hit me like that. And I was like, I snap out of it. And I remember texting everybody, man, I'm in the studio with Michael Jackson.
Did he cut vocals like one take or was it like a...
No, it wasn't, man. To my surprise, his vocals were very fragile, because the song was very high in key. Marsha demoed it and killed the demo.
Sure.
So hearing his voice, how fragile it was kind of alarming also. I'm like, oh, yeah, his voice, you know what I mean? So we would only cut it for about an hour a day, to be honest with you.
Gotcha.
We cut, we started with the hook, you know what I mean? And he loved to stack the hook very big, you know what I mean? So we had like 16 tracks of this note,
Nice.
tons of vocals.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. The next day we start on, some of the leads, and it was just 16 tracks of everything. And I had to cop one lead out of all these vocals. And I remember just sitting in the room with the engineer like, man, this is a lot of vocals to comp through. He's like, well, build your vocal.
Yeah.
And, so the vocal you hear, that's the one that I built out of these 16 tons of tracks, 16 tracks of the first, 16 tracks of the chorus, 16 tracks, second verse, so
nice.
So forth. And so I remember, at first he would shake my hand. So like, third, fourth day, he started hugging me. And I remember like, thinking like, man, Michael Jackson was hugging me.
Yeah.
I kind of melted in his arm. Like, snap out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I was amazed by it too, but I was very professional because I didn't want to act like a fan at all.
Sure.
Right? So I didn't have any fan moments until he left. Me and Marsha would hug and fall out every day he'd leave.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? It'd be us in this huge studio, you know what I mean? Falling out. You know what I mean? And I remember we'd be sitting at the console and he'd be snapping to listen to that back to the list. I'm like, the snap was so loud we ended up recording it.
Wow.
And I remember just looking at him from the side like, I wanted
Please tell me you have like some kind of footage or something.
Well, I do. I have pictures, right?
Gotcha,
Back then, you didn't have an iPhone.
You didn't have
exactly. You had to have an extra camera. I remember having a camera in my bag, and I was scared to take a picture of him or ask, "Can I get a picture?" Because he had like a piece of tape over his nose.
Okay.
You couldn't see the pictures, so I was like, I don't think he's going to take a picture. But he was like, sure,
so cool.
Yeah, we took pictures and stuff like that. I wish I had video for sure.
Nice.
But I remember we sit at the console and he'd be snapping and I just lean back in my chair and I kind of like look at him and like kind of stare at him because I wanted to remember what Michael Jackson looked like in my own head. Not about, you know what I mean? Because, you work with somebody, you're not going to stare at him. This is Michael Jackson.
That's right.
If I could have took a minute and just like, look at you, Mike.
That's right.
Let me see, man. Pull your hands, man. Let me see, man.
Yeah.
He was, he was more than a legend. You know what I mean?
Icon.
My kids discovered Michael Jackson on their own. You know what I mean?
It's funny. When we talk about Mike, and I've said this before, there is no person on earth more famous than Michael Jackson since Jesus.
Listen, everybody knows who he is.
Everybody knows who he is.
Yeah.
How is it? You know what I mean? Like 50, 60 years. Come on, man. Big shout out to Mike. Like
legendary,
legend. Well, more than a legend. Yeah. You're a legend. Michael Jackson.
I can't even say that.
Is an icon.
Icon, to say the least, man.
Yeah.
He broke many records. I mean, touched many people that couldn't even speak English.
Yeah, for sure.
Singing his songs.
No question. I told a story also before.
Prior to social media, prior to all these things, prior to being able to see somebody every day or something.
I remember years ago, I went by the Neverland. This is like after he had passed, some years passed, and you still have people from all over the world pulling up.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, even to today, pulling up to just to write their names on the concrete or give a tribute to him. So crazy. He did crazy impact.
Touched the world, man.
Man,
In a way.
major.
Can we talk?